pretty awesome to talk to you about Cowboy Cartel because you're getting down and dirty and showing us the real work of a journalist. I mean, there was one where he's like pretty much he did end up laying on the ground to save his life, but still recording and narrating what's going on while we hear gunshots in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about as raw as you can get.
So, how did you find this footage and getting these personalities to take part of the documentary?
Castor, you can take that one away.
Yeah, I think a lot of the discovery, the research and going into these projects is twofold. One, we do our paper research and we dig in and we go through case files and we do all of that hard, tedious work and we become as expert as we can in the case. And the second is through conversations with our interviewees and our participants and the organizations. And it was Melissa Del Bosque who told us about that incident. We didn't know until we were interviewing her and she told us about it. And we went back and we found the footage and I mean, I don't think we have any dialogue over that. It's just a minute and 15 seconds and nothing needs to be said. Seeing Juan Cedillo with the emergency button still around his neck, seeing Ginger Thompson's story when she was reporting for the New York Times and doing what federal agents are doing with Kevlar vests and automatic rifles, except she's doing it with a notebook and a pen. You see real bravery that you typically only hear about or see in fictionalized movies. So to see those actions and then to meet the people who took those steps journalistically is exciting in a way. It's a little different risk profile than feds.
And you bring in several of them, but I've had it a joy with the crew of four, and these personalities are total opposites. But one that caught my attention was the rock star, Steve Pennington. Can you talk a little bit about him and bring him on board?
Man, can I tell her
take...
where we met him? Oh man, we're filming in Texas. It's windy as all hell. I mean, really a windy day. And we have this quarter-mile dirt driveway, and we're waiting for an IRS agent to come who led the investigation. And we see this red convertible coming down the road, and Dan and I are like, no way, that's him. And when he gets out of the car, that long blonde hair gets caught in the wind, and it's a tornado of blonde over his head. And we're like, this is not an IRS agent. And he walks in, Steve Pennington, good to meet you. And you go, oh man, this is going to be a great conversation. The fear is you get an accountant sitting there talking to you about ones and zeros, and Steve turned those ones and zeros into oohs and ahs, and that's not the kind of thing that you should expect, nor do you ever really get out of an IRS agent.
And
the best thing.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was saying the best thing about Steve Pennington is you can bring up his name to everybody, and you get the exact same reaction, but then you get a different response. So it'll be like, oh, where do I start? And then they'll tell the story.
And that's what I'm enjoying about your documentary. I haven't finished it quite yet, but because you guys are not making it like your typical one-tone documentary, you guys are really giving these personalities their space and a little bit about who they are.
Yeah, I mean, and that's important to us as filmmakers. Is like we want to make a story about people. Castor has this, way that he describes it is you don't see. And this was intentional. You don't see an FBI officer. You don't see an IRS agent. You see Scott Lawson. You see Steve Pennington. They have real stories. They have real pasts. They have real beliefs, convictions. Same with Ginger Thompson. Same with Melissa Del Bosque. I mean, she is a journalist. She's written a book about it. And then we found a question and we asked it to her, and she broke down crying. Like, she's a real person. You need to give them that space to tell that story. That this crime cartel, you think about violence, about the violence, but you don't know about this other story. You don't know about the impact. You don't know about the complexity. You don't know about what they can do. You don't know about the financial institutions that they can invade. That is the story we wanted to tell. And to your point, we needed everybody's voice to be heard. That's what took it to another level.
Ultimately, this documentary is about money laundering through horses, and you have horses too coming in. So how did you guys split the work? I mean, there's a lot of material, a lot of pieces of the puzzle.
I mean, we didn't. we probably, that would have been a good idea. I think next time let's divide it up. No, we just took it head on. I mean, there was so much to take. There's so much. Castor and I walk in lockstep through things. If we hear something on one side, we bring it to the other side. Like we're constantly in that motion. And we knew that this was such a big story. We knew that we wanted to tell it in a challenging way. We knew that we had a lot of obstacles, that you had to have both our brains working at the same time. You had to have mutual support happening all the time, and the team that we put around us, whether that's the people that we were interviewing to, Kevin or Kelly or Nick or Clint, the people that are around us on our team.
Speaking of people you were interviewing, let's talk about Big Country.
I love
So
that. I met Scott Lawson at a bar in Tennessee, and I'd heard that he was 6'5". He's all of it. I've not really seen many men that size, but I've also not met many men with that moral compass and that courage and honor, which I think is a word that we don't use much anymore. He is the salt of the earth, and he's a rookie way out of his depth in a place he didn't want to go. And he had a hunch that everyone mocked him for and told him it was going to cost him his career and his reputation. And he didn't stop. I would have probably backed off when they started nicknaming me Mr. Ed. I would have probably quit at some point. But what Scott says is he kept moving forward in the investigation until he found a reason not to. And that reason never came. So in spite of his lack of experience in this specific space, and in spite of the lack of initial support, he kept going. And I think it speaks to the power of a person with a belief.
and just to wrap up, have you had, what have some of the personalities that have been taken part of the documentary watch it, and what's the feedback they have given you?
We've only had positive feedback from everybody, which has been great. They're like, let's do it again. Let's find another story.
Scott says he owes us a shot of tequila. The FBI won't be paying for it. This will be out of pocket. It's a personal shot. It's not a taxpayer shot. Yeah, Scott is happy with it so far, and our hope is that everyone who watches it knows that we stayed true to the story and true to their words.
As I watched the documentary, I'm wondering, and maybe it's an idea, but the real life of these subjects that have put their life in risk and how they balance and juggle life, because that must be a tough one.
Yeah, I
Family.
mean, I think we just have to respect and honor the faith that they had in their story to tell in the crimes that they were prosecuting. They're the ones that took the risk. They're the ones that heard from Castor and I when we said this is the story we want to tell. They trusted us, and so I always say that, like, the armor that we have is that we tell a real story, that we tell a truthful story, and that we're honest to the story that is in front of us. And yeah, they're the ones that still have the courage. There were some people that didn't want to appear in it. They gave us their support and they gave us their blessing. But they still live around these communities. Scott is still an active law enforcement officer. But we have to respect that.
Well, thank you both for your time. Congratulations with Cowboy Cartel.